Okay, welcome to my third video. In this video, I will tell you the truth about a very interesting and for some even mind-blowing thing. I believe this video will give you an understanding of the knowledge of ancient civilizations. They knew things that they could only have gotten through three different ways, which are high technology, extraterrestrial visitors, or God. I'm glad you're listening and watching this video. Please share it because understanding these things is good for people. I'm going to start this video by telling you a little bit about light and how it's described in Genesis chapter 1. I promise that towards the end the video will be very interesting. But at the beginning I have to talk a little about philosophy. I want you to think for a moment about what the deepest essence of light is. It is said that every human being has a soul. The human soul sustains life in a human being. This universe also has a soul that sustains its life. And light is a resource that all living beings love. What is the soul of light? I hope you will pause the video for a moment and think about it. After that, continue listening to the video and I will tell you something very interesting. So, in the picture you can see the first three verses of the Bible from Genesis chapter 1 verses 1 to 3, which end with the word light. Now I read these verses in English and in Hebrew. In English, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. Now in Hebrew, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו וחושך על פני תהום, ורוח אלוהים מרחפת על פני המים. ויאמר אלוהים, יהי אור, ויהי אור. Did you know that at this point in the text in Bible, God has not yet created the sun? As you can see from the text, God brings forth light on the first day, but he does not create the sun and the other planets until the fourth day. This means that God brings forth the true light on the first day, and in fact that light is in itself the first day. Now I tell you that this light is divine wisdom. I could tell you more about it, but I have to move on. Now we're going to skip ahead a few verses to verse 14. I will read these verses to you again. And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. And in Hebrew, Vayomer Elohim, יהי מאורות ברכי השמיים להבדיל בין היום ובין הלילה, והיו לאותות ולמועדים ולימים ושנים. So, in Genesis verse 14, God verse 14 and chapter 1. God creates the sun and the other planets. God says, "Let them be for signs." This means that sun and other planets are not actually the true light, but rather signs of what God did on the first day. On the first day there was true darkness and true light, and now, when God creates the sun to produce light, it is an example for us of what divine order and wisdom look like compared to chaos and madness. You can think of the world as the inner self of a person. A person may be in chaos internally when he does not understand life and the world, but understanding and wisdom bring peace and inner light to the person. The sun and planets are sources of light that can be seen physically, but the light within a person is the real light. Similarly, there is a real light behind the entire universe that gives order to the world. This order is from darkness. Now that I've prepared this video a little, I can get to the real topic. In Hebrew, the word for time can be used synonymously with end. When we talk about light and darkness, or day and night, we are talking about the end of one thing and the beginning of another. The concept of time is therefore tied into day and night. Days allow us to count weeks, months, and years. Thus, the sun and planets are signs telling us about the moment in time we live in and where we are heading. Highlights of this annual cycle include solar eclipses and blood moons. For the moon to be able to cover the sun when it passes between the earth and the sun, it needs to be at the perfect distance relative to the sun and the earth. This is possible because the diameter of the moon is 1 to 400 times the diameter of the sun. So, I repeat, diameter of the moon is 1 to 400 times the diameter of the sun. You get this ratio when you divide the diameter of the sun by the diameter of the moon, like I count here. So, the result of the division is 400. 400. Okay. The Earth's distance from the Sun is at its greatest 152,100,000 kilometers. The distance between the Earth and the Moon is just over 300,000 kilometers and a maximum of about 400,000 kilometers, as you can see here. Earth's and Sun's and Moon's distances vary somewhat, but on average, Earth's distance from the Moon is 1 to 400 of Earth's distance from the Sun. Again, you can see here, again, 1 and 400. Dividing the distance between the Sun and the Earth by the distance between the Moon and the Earth, we get an average value of 400. So we see that the number 400 is a significant number that solar eclipses and blood moons can occur. Now I tell you the reason you watched this video. So, in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14, when I say the Hebrew word mark or sign, its root letters are Aleph and Tau. The numerical values of these letters are 1 and 400, as you can see here. Genesis chapter 1 verse 14. Ve otot, and let them be signs or marks here, Aleph and Tau, root letters, and 1 and 400. In fact, the letter Tau itself means a sign, as you can see here. And as you can see from the table I showed in the previous video, you can also prove this from classical Hebrew dictionaries. In addition, Tau is the last letter of the Hebrew language, which is number 22, and Aleph is the first letter, which is number 1. Therefore, the word sign is made up of the first and last letters. You probably remember when I taught you that time can be measured in days, which can be used to calculate when something ends and something else begins. Therefore, you can see that the diameters and distances of the sun and the moon follow the ratio of 1 to 400. In addition, you can see that it all forms humanity's concept of time and the celebrations of different cultures which have been based on solar eclipses, among other things, in their time. The Hebrew word for sign is therefore the number 1 and the number 400, just as the diameters of the sun and moon are in relation to each other, so that the moon is 1 and the sun is 400, and likewise the distance of the earth from the moon is 1, and compared to the distance of the earth from the sun, it is 400. Likewise, Aleph is the beginning and Tau is the end, just as the sunrise is the beginning of a new day and the sunset is the end of the past day. Thank you for watching. I'm happy for each of you who listen to these videos. Share this with someone if you can. Thank you very much.